Howdy, howdy, everybody. This is Colin, back at it again with another music review. I just want to start off by saying I apologize for the sound of my voice. I'm kind of getting over some sickness, if you will, some head cold, sinus trouble. So I might sound a bit gravelly and scratchy and under the weather. But let that not deter us. Today, we are going to be talking about yet another phenomenal album. We're going to be talking about Buster by Admiral Angry, easily what I would consider to be maybe the heaviest album ever written. And the guys that were a part of this project, a lot of them went on to be part of another band that continues to write heavy music to this day. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that, but I really want to focus on Buster because this album I think is kind of underrated. I mean, it's grown in popularity a lot since I first discovered it, but I think it deserves a lot more praise and a good listen from people who would consider themselves fans of heavy, kind of sludgy metal music. So, a little background. This album came out in 2009. Like I said, it's kind of a sludge slash metalcore, although I don't necessarily agree with the metalcore tag that is typically assigned to this album. I can definitely see where it comes from with some of the drum patterns on some of the songs, but this is purely a sludgy album, I would say. And perhaps the vocals maybe lend itself to that tag as well. But this definitely is much more sludgy than it is metalcore, so do not be off-put by that if you're not a fan of that genre. But yeah, so this was kind of like the magnum opus of their songwriter Daniel Kraus, who unfortunately passed away of cystic fibrosis, excuse me, at the age of 22. And he wrote pretty much this entire album with a little bit of input from the other members, but this was really his brainchild, as was a lot of the other stuff that he worked on. He was just fully involved, did all the artwork and everything, and yeah, he really came together or put together something that is unlike anything else, I would say, just in its sheer heaviness and pummeling, just destructive riffs. And it really captures, I imagine, the emotional state he was in. The lyrics are very hard hitting, kind of angsty, and very just nihilistic, perhaps would be a way to put it. And I imagine that's probably indicative of the emotional and kind of mental state he was in at the time as he was working on this album, knowing that his end was near. So let's dive into the music. This is a 9-track album. All of them are incredible. You're not going to find a bad song on this album whatsoever. And I've recommended this album on the podcast before, I know a couple of times, so I've shouted out some notable tracks there. And I actually made mention of it in the last episode as well. So I talk a little bit more about some of the outreach and stuff that they're doing. The vocalist who was a part of this project unfortunately passed away as well, like a couple weeks ago. So I'll go ahead and drop the link in the description. They're doing a little fundraiser for him. It's a custom one-off merch piece to commemorate him and to fund some of the costs associated with his funeral and just donations to his family as well. So I'll throw that down there. But yeah, every track on this album is just sheer sonic destruction. It's heavy, it's down tuned to such a significant amount that when they play and riff on that lowest string, I mean, it's just like you just get blasted with just devastation. It's really awesome. And a lot of heavier bands that down tune so low, I'm really not even sure what tuning they're playing in. I know that their guitars were actually basses that they converted into 7-string guitars, so they had that extra long scale length and were able to accommodate such low tunings. I'm not sure what they're playing in, but they don't heavily utilize that low string to the point that it's annoying and kind of genty. That's not really present here. There's a lot of unique sounds and soundscapes really that they managed to conjure up doing some of the tremolo picking and chords and stuff that are on this album. There's some dissonant parts. There's some very kind of free form parts. There's just the sheer, just head banging mosh pit destruction parts that are quite prevalent, I must add, but not in a bad way. I feel like a lot of bands tend to kind of really lean into that, and their songs are just heavy because they're super slow and down tuned and just like, while these songs do have some of that, they're not leaning into it to the point that it's like obnoxious. I feel like every breakdown is like perfectly placed. So it's not like you're just constantly headbanging and feeling like there's no variety here. There's plenty of different guitar work and some other cool stuff that they do. There's actually some black metal influence on this album a little bit as well, just through some of the tremolo picking and lead lines that occur sometimes through it. I know that Daniel Kraus was a fan of Mayhem, Kindred Spirit, and so you hear some of that as well. There's actually a really cool picture of him in like full corpse paint and stuff. It's pretty sweet. But some standout tracks that I think I would mention, just if you're wanting to skim this album or maybe get an idea of what to expect. Let's see. I mean, they're all so good. Kill Yourself is really where I feel like a lot of the elements are really fully exposed here. Blowdown is pure heaviness, just straight in to a super down tempo, slow beating riff that just like you're ready to throw your head through a wall. Excuse me. Plastic Bath. This might be where some of that metalcore stuff comes through. The drums are more punchy. Upbeat might not be the right way to put it, but there's much more kind of up tempo and energy here, and it starts off with this really sweet drum intro. Android is probably the most fleshed out song on the album. I feel like a lot of probably effort and thought went into this particular track. Starts off with a really cool sample, and you just get into the heaviness, and it just is, it's like a sonic journey where, it builds you up, and then the end has an incredible, after this like tempo slowing down section, it ends with a really awesome drum solo that leads us into the next song. Bug Vomit is really good. The Illusion of Strength is the final track on the album and is also really good. Definitely some of that black metal influence I was talking about coming through on The Illusion of Strength, I feel like. But yeah, every track on this album is really worth listening to, and I don't think you're going to get bored. All the songs kind of flow into each other in a really natural way, and there's just some really cool ideas and stuff that are actually well executed. I know you have a lot of heavy bands like this that kind of try to experiment and do some sonically unique things, but Admiral Angry on this album especially just absolutely nailed everything that they were going for. I feel like there was just a great process here that enabled this album to come to life, and unfortunately that did involve the untimely passing of Daniel Kraus, but through his experience with life, he really was able to immortalize himself, I feel like, into this incredible sonic masterpiece. There's a great quote, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was quoted as saying, like, "We hope our music is most unpleasant," and I feel like he really just embodied that through this album. There's just, it's kind of inaccessible if you've never delved into this type of music, but if you like it and it resonates with you, I mean, you probably are hard pressed to find a better example, I would say. The last thing I really wanted to touch on as far as this album is concerned are the vocals and the drums. So, and as far as the drums, I mean how they sound. So vocally, very screeching, angry, just almost sounds like he's tearing his vocal cords. And as I mentioned, this vocalist, he recently passed away as well. But the way that he performed the lyrics on this album is just so like painful. He really encapsulates the sort of emotional turmoil that exists here through this process. It's heartbreaking. You can hear his vocal cords like breaking as he's singing, like just these incredible high, just horrible, and not horrible like in they sound bad, but horrible just like it's painful to imagine, the performance of it, I guess. It sounds like it would hurt really bad. And it comes across so well on this album. The vocals, I think, fit perfectly with the rest of the concept here. And then lastly, the drums, probably the best sounding drums I have ever heard recorded. The snare drum, especially, is just chef's kiss. I mean, it's snare drums, especially for drummers, are personal preference. I don't think you're going to find a better sounding snare drum, in my opinion. The bass drum is nice and punchy. All the toms are full. They have a full resonance and tone that just comes through as he's playing. The cymbals all sound really good. And everything is mixed very well. I don't feel like the anything is really being overshadowed. If I could make a little nitpick, I would say the bass is very quiet, but at the same time, I mean, the guitars are tuned so low, the bass kind of might have a bit of trouble fitting in the mix, but it's all there. Excuse me. It's all there, and it all sounds very good. So with that being said, I mean, that pretty much touches, I think, on what makes this album so incredible. It's angry, obviously. You can really feel the emotional turmoil and stress and strain that was put into it. The instruments are well performed. Everything is super tight. The recording is clear. The mix is good. The vocals are just perfect for this sound. And overall, it's just a phenomenal album. Very few albums, I would say, receive a perfect 10 from me. Maybe 3 albums total, I would say, get a perfect 10, and this is one of them. I don't think you're going to find a heavier album. And in saying that, also check out Black Sheep Wall, which is the project of a lot of the members from this band who later went on to continue with Black Sheep Wall, which was another project that was occurring kind of simultaneously as Amaral Angry. Daniel Krause was also very involved with that back in that time as far as the artwork and contributing ideas to it, but it has continued on. I will probably be reviewing Songs for the Enamel Queen, which is their latest release, and it is also a phenomenal and heavy album. So go check it out. Go support those guys. And like I mentioned before, I will be leaving the limited merch drop for their vocalist in the description. So go support them. Go leave a donation. They're all really nice guys, and they make some awesome music. But with that being said, this album gets a perfect 10 for me. I don't think you're going to find a heavier album or anything in this style that really nails this. You'll have to listen to understand. But with that being said, I've been Colin. This has been my review of Buster. I hope y'all enjoyed, and tune back in for the next one in the future. Thank you.